What if the most terrifying thing you could ever encounter is yourself? Not a metaphor, not a dream, not a trick of the light, but a second you, breathing, moving, thinking, existing where you should not be. Because today, we're exploring something that challenges every assumption we have about identity, consciousness, and even reality itself. For centuries, people across every culture have reported a figure that looks exactly like them. Same face, same voice, same memories. A perfect copy. But here's where it gets impossible. Multiple witnesses often confirm the same duplicate. Sometimes the real person is asleep miles away. Sometimes the double speaks. Sometimes it tries to take their place. A phenomenon ancient folklore called a doppelganger, but that modern psychology, neuroscience, and physics still cannot explain. What if everything we know about the self, memory, perception, even the boundary of our physical bodies, is wrong? Tonight, we explore the cases that mainstream science avoids, the ones too well documented to dismiss, the ones that suggest something truly disturbing. You are not alone in your own skin. Today, we journey through evidence that challenges everything. Prepare yourselves. We begin. Origin of the mystery. In 1928, a neurologist in Vienna discovered something extraordinary. A patient, an otherwise healthy woman, claimed she repeatedly saw herself walking ahead of her, mimicking her every move. This wasn't a hallucination. 3 nurses independently verified seeing the double. The doctor believed it was a psychological episode until the woman's doppelganger stepped through a doorway she herself had not yet reached. This bizarre observation became the seed of a terrifying scientific question. How can the human brain generate a duplicate consciousness outside the body? To a general audience, the concept seems simple. A hallucination is internal. A person is external. But what do you call an internal event that multiple people witness? Consider this analogy. Imagine projecting a movie on a wall, except the projector is inside your skull, and the image appears in the real world, visible to others. Impossible. And yet, that's exactly what some of the best documented cases describe. This contradiction created the central mystery. If a doppelganger is psychological, why does it behave independently? If it's physical, why does it vanish without a trace? The more scientists studied the phenomenon, the worse the questions became. And that's where our investigation truly begins. But the evidence forces us to confront an uncomfortable possibility. Evidence number 1, the Emily Sage case. Our first piece of evidence comes from 1845, Latvia. A school teacher named Emily Sage terrified her students for an entire year. Witnesses, 32 students, 4 staff members, all consistent. Reports describe a perfect duplicate of Emily appearing beside her in class, writing on the chalkboard while the real Emily was across the room. Measurements from diaries indicate the double appeared up to 15 meters away. It cast no shadow. It performed tasks before Emily herself attempted them. Students could pass their hands through it, describing a sensation of thick air. Conventional explanations, mass hysteria, stress, misperception, fail completely. 36 people experiencing a synchronized hallucination, day after day, with identical descriptions? But this represents just one piece of a much larger puzzle. Evidence number 2, the sleeping double phenomenon. In 1967, a hospital in Michigan documented a patient who repeatedly left his body. Not metaphorically, not spiritually. A second version of him, visible to nurses, was observed standing at the foot of his bed. His real body, at the time, was unconscious. Medical records show the duplicate appeared 9 times. Vital signs: heart rate unchanged, no signs of seizure, no medication causing hallucinations. Nurses described the devil as semi-solid, like a person made of dense fog. One nurse measured its presence using a thermometer. The temperature dropped by 2.4 degrees Celsius, equivalent to a cold pocket of air the size of a human torso. Again, hallucination fails as an explanation. Temperature changes are measurable, independent, real. But this is still only a fragment, because where this phenomenon leads is far stranger. Evidence number 3. The mirror anomalies. Between 1992 and 2003, a clinical psychologist in Alberta interviewed 112 people who experienced mirror doubles, versions of themselves seen in glass that did not move when they did. In 17% of cases, the reflection smiled before the person did. In 7%, the reflection stayed behind for 1 full second after the person walked away. Security footage in one home captured the reflection turning its head while the real person walked past with face forward. Experts blamed optical illusions, but a head turning in a reflection? Impossible, unless the reflection isn't imitating you, it's watching you. And that brings us deeper. Evidence number 4. Shared doppelganger encounters. One of the most troubling findings comes from cases involving multiple witnesses with no relation to each other. In 2018, 3 co-workers in London independently described seeing a 4th co-worker, Thomas, enter the elevator, ride to the 8th floor, and step out. Security footage shows Thomas never arrived at work. His key card never scanned. His real self was still asleep at home. 3 eyewitness accounts, 1 absent man. This isn't hallucination. This is duplication, a phenomenon that should not exist in biology, psychology, or physics. But this represents just one piece of a much larger puzzle. Evidence number 5. Neuropsychological triggers. Brain imaging shows that stimulating the temporoparietal junction, an area responsible for spatial awareness, can induce the sense of a presence. But here's where it gets strange. In controlled experiments, 2 out of 15 subjects saw clear, humanoid shapes that mimicked their posture. One described it as wearing my body like a suit. Another said it whispered to them. Scientific explanation? The brain creates a duplicate model of the body for balance and motion. But then what happens when that internal model escapes its boundaries? This measurement problem forces us to reconsider the nature of consciousness itself. Evidence number 6. The photographs. The earliest known photograph of a doppelganger dates to 1906, a woman appearing twice in the same frame, standing meters apart. No double exposure, no trick photography, verified by negatives. Recent examples include digital images where people see themselves in the background, even when they were alone. Metadata confirms single exposure, no edits, no artifacts. One image analysis suggests pixel distribution identical to the subjects, meaning the duplicate is not a person, but the same person. A glitch? A tear in memory? A fracture in reality? Or something worse. Evidence number 7. The behavioral deviations. In many reports, Doppelgangers are not neutral. They act with intention. They mimic strangely. They appear in the corner of vision. They stand by beds at night. They watch sleeping people. One man in Norway described his doppelganger as studying me like prey. Another said his double whispered, "I was here first." If these were hallucinations, why the consistent themes? Why the autonomy? Why the intelligence? Evidence number 8. Quantum identity paradox. Some physicists propose an unnerving explanation. The self is not a single state. It's a probability cloud, multiple possible versions collapsing into one at any given moment. If reality slips, just slightly, another version may momentarily arrive. This is the quantum self-overlap hypothesis. Competing interpretation? Doppelgangers are fragments of disassociated memory manifesting externally. But neither model explains shared sightings, temperature changes, photographic evidence. This forces us to reconsider fundamental assumptions about identity, perception, and the boundary between mind and matter. The implications. And here is where the deepest horror lies. The most profound implications emerge when we consider, what if doppelgangers aren't copies? What if you are the copy? What if the original you occupies multiple states and occasionally two overlap? What if consciousness is not anchored? What if identity is fluid? What if your memories aren't uniquely yours? What if the version of you watching this right now is not the version that wakes up tomorrow? Consider this. If doppelgangers exist, truly exist, they challenge our most basic belief that we are singular, that we are one, that we are real. Conclusion. Tonight we traveled through centuries of evidence, witness accounts, medical documentation, photographs, temperature measurements, neuroscience, quantum physics, and psychological anomalies. Each one leading us deeper and deeper into an idea we were never meant to face. The self is not stable. The self is not singular. The self might not even be confined to the body. We began with a simple question: what if everything we know about identity is wrong? Now, after the evidence, we understand. Some answers were never meant to be comforting. Some truths are shadows standing just behind us, reflected in mirrors that hold on too long, observed in hallways when we are miles away. And someday, you may see your own face staring back at you from across the room. If that day comes, do not look away, because the search for the truth about consciousness, about reality, about ourselves, is the greatest journey humanity will ever undertake. And the final revelation is this: the most terrifying thing in the universe may be you.